This Monday, Albertans face an important yes or no question. Voters will be asked whether the principle of equalization payments should be thrown out. That is the program that helps the so-called have-not provinces pay for services. Alberta has no power to change it, which makes this referendum in many ways symbolic. One of the louder voices campaigning for a yes vote is Fairness Alberta. It is a group formed to fight for Alberta's economic interests. Bill Buick is the group's executive director, and he is in Edmonton. Bill, good to have you on the program. You're arguing against equalization, essentially saying that it's unfair, unaffordable, and unacceptable. Can you lay out your biggest reasoning for this?
Well, the most obvious reason is that over the last 6 years, since the energy downturn, the provinces have all come much closer together in terms of their fiscal capacity. They've all become much more equal. And yet the equalization payments have grown from 16 billion to 21 billion this year, and they're going to go up to 25 billion in the next 4 years. This is unaffordable to the country. We're in a terrible debt situation, and this is just a bloated, unnecessary expenditure. And then it's also unaffordable for provinces like Alberta and Ontario and British Columbia and Saskatchewan to have their taxpayers putting so much money. It's about $2,400 per family of four, a little more in Alberta, have that much money going to Ottawa to then go straight to Quebec and the Maritimes provincial governments in order to sometimes provide better services than we can afford in the so-called have provinces. So the provinces are closer together than ever. We need equalization less than ever, and yet it gives out more payments than ever.
Okay, but I mean, you say we need equalization less than ever. If I were to use the example of PEI, they basically have to put their HST up to 30% from 5% in order to pay for their services if equalization was withdrawn. So it doesn't seem like all provinces are even Steven, as you seem to be suggesting.
I would happily double PEI's payment if we could get this program under control. That's a few $100 million out of a $21 billion program. Frankly, Quebec is the biggest recipient, and I published a piece recently about how all the flaws in the program are stacked in Quebec's favor. If you change the way the Quebec hydro is calculated into the formula, if you make some adjustment for the cost of living, I mean, anybody who's been to Toronto and Montreal knows there's a big difference in the cost of living between those two cities. So why would the Quebec government need the same fiscal capacity to provide the same services? The answer is they don't.
Okay, so
if you just make a few changes, you can drastically reduce the payments that go out.
Okay, so walk me through. I mean, your issue seems to be with the way in which equalization is calculated, the formula itself. But that's not the question that's being asked to Alberta voters. It's actually it's a constitutional question about removing equalization from the Constitution itself. One province alone can't do that, and a referendum isn't going to do that now. So why not ask people, would you like to see a different formula?
The main reason is that the Supreme Court in 1998, with regard to the Quebec secession reference, had a reference case, and they laid out that certainly secession is a specific case, but in general, when a province has a concern about a constitutional matter and they pass a referendum to support that brings a higher level of a duty to consult upon the federal government and the other partners in the federation. And frankly, Albertans have a bit of a tough time getting an open hearing on some of these issues. It's something that the politicians have wanted to kind of punt down the road repeatedly of both parties. And so this referendum, and the reason it's phrased that way, is to maximize the impact of it and to elevate this topic to the top of the agenda. You're right, we can't change it on our own, so the exact wording of the referendum isn't quite as significant given that it has no binding effect. But what it does is let the rest of Canada know that we need this issue discussed. And from there, I hope that people in Ontario and British Columbia start thinking about this, because there's billions of dollars that their taxpayers have been sending east of the Ottawa River, and it's really unaffordable and I think clearly unfair right now.
Okay, so let me talk to you about Ontario, which is the single biggest payer into equalization, or Ontarians specifically, because it's not a provincial government that actually pays equalization. It's the taxpayers in those jurisdictions. And the federal government distributes it under that equalization formula. Why is it that Alberta, this has become an issue in Alberta, but it has not become an issue in Ontario? Why do you think that is?
Well, I think Albertans have been a little more accustomed to the assuming that there's a bit more going into Ottawa than we're getting back because the numbers have been so massive for us over the previous decades. But you're right, Ontarians pay nearly as much per capita into this program as Albertans do, and much more overall. It's about $8.5 billion that Ontarians are sending into the federal government that is going straight to the provincial capitals in Quebec and the Maritimes and Manitoba. So all their neighbors are getting their provincial services supported by Ontarians. And I plan to go to Ontario as soon as this referendum's over and try to get them to join us and put a majority coalition together, because 70% of Canadians pay a lot of money into this. And I think we all need to ask some questions about why is it so big? Why is this formula so flawed? And when is something going to be done about it?
Okay, I've only got really seconds here, Bill, but do you fundamentally disagree with what equalization is about, that the similar levels of public services should be offered in every jurisdiction of the country without having to radically increase tax rates in those jurisdictions? Do you fundamentally disagree with that?
I do not fundamentally disagree, but what I fundamentally disagree with is the many, many, many layers of equalization that have grown into the federal government over the last decades, and the fact that Albertans are paying to about $20,000 per family of four more to Ottawa than we get back, and we have to stop that and start getting the ball rolling across the country to get serious fiscal reforms.
Okay, Bill Buick, thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.